You're listening to the Player Issue Podcast. Here's your host, Aaron Warwick.
G'day. Welcome to episode 12 of the Player Issue Podcast. That's right, we've hit the baker's dozen, another milestone. I can't believe it, I'm sure you can't either. The little podcast that could just keeps on rolling. We got another interview today with another collector from a club. I'm not going to give you any hints as to what club it's going to be just yet. You're going to have to listen into the interview. It's been a little bit of time trying to get him on the show. He's been a very busy man, as have I, so it's been rather hard to organise a time that we can both get in the same room, as he did come into the studio, which is always good. Obviously, the sound quality is much better when they can come into studio, so it was great to get him in. I'm sure you're all going to enjoy the chat. It was a rather long chat, went for about an hour and 20 minutes. I actually cut out about 4 or 5 minutes, so it did actually go for a little bit longer than that, but cut it down to a little bit of a shorter figure, an hour and 20, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the open here, because otherwise we'll be here forever listening to this show, and no one wants to hear my voice go for that long. So it's been a big couple of weeks in the forecast of football. We've seen Puma officially come out and announce that they are partnered with Carlton Football Club as of next year. There is rumours that it's a 10-year deal. However, as you've seen with other clubs, and namely Essendon, long-term deals don't always seem to matter. So fingers crossed Puma are on board for the long haul, and hopefully they can bring out and produce the quality that we've seen from them in the past. So fingers crossed. We've also seen St Kilda officially announce that they are moving to ISC. Can't remember if I actually mentioned that in the previous show, but they have officially announced it. We also have still got pretty strong rumours with Brisbane moving to classic sportswear. Seen some concept designs of that. Looks interesting. We'll have more on that in the future, I'm sure. And one that come out of left field a little bit, we saw Gold Coast Suns move from X-Blades to ISC. So, as I've mentioned multiple times, I'm a big fan of ISC, and I think Gold Coast will actually really benefit from ISC, as their jumpers will actually look really quality, I reckon, on field. So, it'll be interesting to see what they can do with their design, which is rather plain and boring, but I could imagine that their on-field jumpers will look quite nice, and really excited to see what they come up with. We do know that the Under Armour Guernseys will be out and will be on show as of the 11th of November. So 8 days from today, the Essendon Under Armour Guernseys will be shown to the world. So get excited for that one, Bombers fans. And Collingwood have promised a new Guernsey for 2020 as well. I feel weird saying Guernsey as well, so I'm just going to go back to saying jumper. Collingwood have announced that they are going to show their 2020 jumpers very soon, just says coming soon. And it also looks as though they're going to have a 10-year anniversary jumper from the 2010 Premiership winning season. So it'll be very interesting to see what they come up with for the design for that. Hopefully it's not the god-awful collar they had in 2010. But it will be very interesting to see what they come up with. It'll be good to see if they come up with a 30-year design as well for the 1990 Premiership as well. But we'll just have to see where that goes. Anyway, let's not muck around too much. Let's get into the interview today. As I mentioned, it is a long one, so please bear with us, and I think you'll rather enjoy it. So here is our interview today with Brett Attrill. All right, Brett, how are we, mate?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
I'm fantastic. 2:38 on a Saturday afternoon on my day off. I love my Saturday afternoon days off. What have you been up to this morning?
My son's preparing to play his first international rugby tournament in Singapore at the end of the month. So been down at Cottesloe playing a friendly match, getting ready for that tour.
That's awesome. How old's your son?
9.
9, and he's off on his international tour. Wow.
Indeed. So they do it a little bit different in the rugby game.
Yeah. I remember when I was playing basketball and I was told that I was going to go to America for a bit of a tour, but I was 13 or 14 at that point, and that was about as young as you could go at that stage for international tours. So, yeah, rugby's pretty big over here in Perth, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly growing again. You know, I mean, I guess the Western Force getting kicked out basically made people realise how important it was, and the passion has grown. You know, last weekend, Western Force won the NRC National Rugby Championship.
Yeah, right.
Grand final. So Western Australian rugby's going well.
Getting back on the map. I actually came from, I was in a past relationship with a rugby family, and I say rugby family because if you're dating a rugby girl, the entire family, cousins, aunties, uncles, friends, they're all big rugby people. I had to get out of there because I'm not a rugby guy. I'm definitely a footy guy, and just 24/7 rugby up till 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Everyone loud as hell. They're all Kiwis, so they're just off chains when it comes to rugby. So
Yeah,
but it's passion. I love passion. So
I'm learning to love the game. My son shows a bit of promise in it, but I certainly similar. I grew up in Victoria, so it was all about Aussie rules and cricket and basketball. So rugby league became interesting in the late 90s when State of Origins were played in Melbourne, and then 98 when the Melbourne Storm came in. So Union wasn't something I had a lot of exposure to until just recent years.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so you mentioned you come from Victoria.
Yes.
Now you're living here in Perth.
Yes.
Now who do you support though?
The mighty Hawthorn Football Club.
Hawthorn Hawks. So we're back to Victoria for another guest today. So how did you start following them?
I think it was ingrained from birth. My mother and auntie were very passionate Hawthorn supporters. Going back to the 1960s, they were in like banner squads and things like that, and lived not far from Glenferrie Oval. So, being a youngster growing up, effectively everyone in the family was Hawthorn, and used to go to many a game and that type of thing, and the love's just grown from there.
Fair enough. And how long have you been in Perth for?
I moved over in 2006 after a 7 or 8 year stint in Sydney. Mm-hmm. So, late 90s, moved up to Sydney.
Yep.
98. And, actually, that was before Channel 9 had the football rights.
Okay.
So, it was very difficult to watch AFL football in Sydney. So, to get my footy fix, I used to actually go to Sydney Swans, games and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, okay. So you mentioned that you'd just come over, well, not recently, but 13 years is fairly recently, I guess. But you've got your own little family now.
Correct.
Are they all Hawthorn supporters as well?
They certainly are. My 9-year-old son we spoke about before, when February comes around, his membership card will say 11-year member. Wow. So he's
got on it really early, didn't he?
The first season when we actually found out that he was on his way, we didn't know whether he was a boy or girl at that stage. We had a family membership with the older son being involved, and phoned the club and actually sent a membership. First name being Junior.
Yep. Okay.
And then it was changed to William when he was.
Is that now his nickname as well? Junior?
No.
Oh.
Interestingly, Junior boy Rioli's making his re-debut for the Tiwi Bombers this afternoon.
Yep. Is that happened yet? It would have happened by now.
It's happening at the moment. I saw some video probably an hour and a half ago of him running out in a helmet.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah.
Looked like he'd been in a reasonable paddock. But I'm sure the silky skills will still be there.
No doubt about it. So, when did you start your collecting, and what was the very first player issue you got in your collection?
Well, I guess my collecting, first of all, started with football cards. So, I remember, visiting older cousins and things like that when, before I went to school. And, they supported other teams and actually started me going with Scanlon's cards of Hawthorn. So, that was, I guess, my first exposure, to collecting. Family members had old football records and those sort of things, that I've managed to sort of inherit as the years have gone on. But I think my first Guernsey that I got would have been about 2005.
Yep.
Back in that day, Hawthorn were one of the early ones of selling player-worn Guernseys. And they used to call them dirty Guernseys, and they come with a certificate of authenticity from the club.
Yep.
So, it was either 2005 or 2006, the first year that, I bought one.
Mm-hmm. What was it?
Good question. I'll have to come back on that
one. Don't remember? Oh, no. Joe, I thought I didn't do very good research, so we're off to a good start here. No, I say I didn't do great research. There's a reason for that. You're a bit of a quiet collector, I guess. It would be an easy thing to say. Not that actually easy to find. I've had to do a little bit of research on yourself, but most of that has come from you sending me stuff or me going on a lot of Facebook pages and literally searching your name up and seeing what's actually been happening in the world of Brett.
Yes.
So what is it about just quietly collecting? Is there a reason you wanted to stay in the background, or is it just something you just not really thought of?
I guess it's one of those things that being a longer term sort of collector, I'd acquired a lot of my gear prior to, I hate to use the word bandwagoners, when Hawthorn had some success, in recent years, certainly prices and, the levels that auctions have gone to and the number of bidders for various things. I hate to use the word bandwagoners, but there's always a bit of an element of, dormant supporters or, people from other clubs sort of chasing it. So I managed to, I guess, close most of the gaps in my collection quite some time ago. Now it's just generally buying a unique, Guernsey or the like. So, I guess one of the holy grail, so to speak, of, Guernseys I was chasing for a long period of time was the Blue Diamond, that Hawthorn actually only wore in one game, in a pre-season game in Canberra. So I managed to finally track that down, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, through another Hawthorn collector that I'd actually been chasing him for, the previous 4 or 5 years to that. So I finally, after the best part of a decade was able to close, that one out. So sort of, if it's something unique now or something I don't have, because effectively majority of almost all of my collection is match worn with a certificate of authenticity from either Hawthorn back when they issued them themselves or the AFL Players Association as per the more recent ones that have come through there.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Fair enough. You kind of jumped the gun on me a little bit here, but so do you have an end game now, or is your end game now completed and you're literally just sitting there waiting for any good ones to come up? Or surely there's something out there that you've still got to get your hands on?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 boys, so at some point in time, my boys are going to inherit a fairly extensive collection. There's only a couple of jumpers I've still got that are actually replicas as opposed to match worn. So one of those I don't think I'm ever going to be able to actually get. In 2000, Hawthorn wore almost like a rugby jersey type one with the sleeves.
Yes.
I think they actually, from memory, played that game up in Brisbane. It was ridiculously hot at half time. If it wasn't everybody, it was almost everybody in the team actually cut the sleeves off to make them back into a traditional type Guernsey.
Is that the one where they went and stood in the shade at half time or a quarter time, rather?
No, that was another year when we're up by truckload and then stand in the shade and got absolutely run over. So that's one. I know that there's a couple of in existence, but I haven't been able to prize one of them. Because once again, they're sort of rare as hen's teeth and,
indeed,
the value is accordingly, what people are seeking. So, I've pretty much got, Guernseys all the way back to the, early 1990s. So, I've got all of the grand final match worn, from 2008 onwards.
Yep.
91 or earlier. 91, I think, was the first one that they actually had a designated sewn-on badge.
Yeah.
But back in those days, players would generally wear the same, 1 or 2 jerseys for a couple of years. So, it's not like today with, I think it was the 2014 grand final. Luke Hodge actually wore 4, Guernseys because it was his,
250th, yeah.
Yeah, so he changed every quarter, but the other grand finals, normally the first half is the one that gets auctioned, and the second half are the ones that the players, keep.
Yeah. Yeah, tremendous. So, it sounds like there's a few in the collection anyway. Can you put a number on it? How much research have you done? Or how well do you know your collection? Do you have a number that you have in your collection right now?
I think it's around 80. I did count it a while back, but I haven't actually done the proper preparation to relook at that. I think I've actually acquired a couple of more since I last put that list together. A fairly significant proportion of my collection is related to Luke Bruce, similar to you with David Mundy.
Yes.
I've actually got Luke Bruce 13, 14, 15 grand final match worn Guernsey. A bunch of his, match worn boots, his 100th game, his 200th game.
Wow.
In fact, when he was over here for round 23, he'd only signed one side of the Guernsey. So my son and I went and caught up with him in the team hotel and, got the Guernsey completely properly signed.
Yeah,
and,
nice.
caught up with him. So, it's, I think it's around about the 80 mark, but,
But I can imagine there's a lot of quality in there as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it's, as I said, like in later years, I've generally only bought, when it's been a new issue, like, Anzac, around a few years ago when Hawthorn played Port Adelaide, they went, a lot higher than, what I thought they would have gone and things like that. So, I think I got Matt Suckling, who, a year or two later actually went to, the Western Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
But majority of the, the collection is, that sort of tier A, type player that, I tend to focus on.
Yeah.
And, sometimes some of that, speculation around who I think might be a future star, like James Sicily, I've got some of his older Guernseys before he moved into Josh Gibson's when he retired and things like that. So, a little bit like that. Got to burnt a little bit with my predictions with when Ryan Burton got traded to bring Chad Wingard over and things like that. But I mean, it's more about the uniqueness as opposed to I'd rather have 10 high quality jumpers rather than 100 retails and that type of thing. So it's about that's my focus on the collection.
Nice. I've got a question for you about that actually. So you mentioned Ryan Burton going over to Port.
Yes.
Does that then make you want to move on that jumper? Because I had recently put up a Lachie Neale jumper and everyone's thinking, because he's gone over to Brisbane, no longer wants it. And truth of the matter is I actually had two of the same jumper, so there's no need to keep two.
Yes.
But champions of the game, they're still champions of the game no matter what happened, where they go. So I've still got a significant amount, 7 or 8 Lachie Neales in my collection that probably won't go anywhere because there's a gun and he's still part of our history. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, it is. There was a little bit of connection with Ryan Burton as well. My wife actually did surf lifesaving with his dad back in South Australia and things like that. So there was a little bit of that connection there as well. The reason why I wanted to pick up one of his Guernseys and that season his best first year player and all those sort of things when I acquired his Guernsey. In regards to Lachie, I've actually my brother when he got married a couple of years ago, Lachie was one of the guests at the wedding. So
nice.
had a nice chat with him. Lovely guy. Long term friend of my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and the like. They grew up on neighbouring farms, sort of on the border of South Australia and Victoria.
Yeah, okay. It's amazing that people think that the players only want to go back to their hometowns and whatever because they're homesick. But then you see players like Lachie and even Eddie Betts that didn't necessarily grow up in a city; they grew outside of the city, so they don't really have a massive connection to their hometowns. So they'll end up going to a Brisbane or somewhere that may be a bit of left field. But it's not always about that home connection. But it is sad when you lose some quality players, though.
Indeed.
So one thing I ask a lot of the collectors who come in, or the guests that come on, is their favourite designs. So I know it's really hard for a club. I'm going to say it, but known a little bit as the poos and wees a little bit, just because of their colours. And those of you who don't know, I put on some LED lights in the studio. It's easy when a club like Collingwood or Fremantle come in because it's real easy colours. However, it's such a hard colour to get, the poos and wees. So I don't even know what colour this is right now. It looks like a lime and an orange almost. But
it's certainly not brown and gold. It's it's lime and orange. I think would be a closer approximation, but certainly appreciate the sentiment. And
so Phillips Hugh, you need to up your game a little bit on there. You need to give us a Hawthorn scenery, I think,
and also over Aaron's shoulder.
I'll take Eric. I get that a lot.
He's one of the illustrious Power Ranger jumpers that Hawthorn wore there for a couple of seasons, which to be frank wasn't one of my favourite ones over the journey. But as you say, when you've got unique colours, there's only so many variants that you can.
It's very hard.
Well, I actually prefer. I spoke about before that. The blue diamond. Was one of those holy grail sort of jumpers, but over the journey, I've never really been a fan of. I've always been a bit of a traditionalist. I like Hawthorn merch and the like being brown and gold. A number of years, Hawthorn's tried to introduce navy and things like that to make it a little bit more corporate and that type of thing. Never been a fan. I actually, made contact with, Jeff Kennett and Stuart Fox when he was there at some point in time, expressing my displeasure with having to buy, effectively, close to West Coast, colours over here. So, but yeah, like it's, as you say, it's a little bit hard. I actually quite like our new away strip, which is much more predominantly white, but potentially there'll be a new strip next year because that was the second year we've worn that.
Yes, that's an interesting thought actually. And okay, so there is actually a few different jumpers that you guys have design wise. Now I'm thinking about it. Do you have a favourite that you've worn? I actually, as you mentioned that, I've actually clicked that there is actually a favourite of mine, and it is also incredibly recent. Mm-hmm. It might come as a surprise to some, especially traditionalists like yourself, but do you have a favourite design that the club has worn?
Well, the Kokoda game, when we wore that for the first season, which was effectively our away strip with the hawk head, but camouflaged, colours. I actually acquired Ben Stratton's out of that game. When he was still wearing the 39, played on Adam Goods, sort of touted him up, and he what season was that? That was it was actually in 2010. Interesting story. My youngest son was born the day that Hawthorn were coming to town to do a session at Clontarf.
Oh yeah,
and I promised my older son that I was going to take him down. So everything sort of happened at once, and Ben had just been picked up in the 2009, early 2010, 3rd of February. I took my older son down there and he goes, "Oh, how's your day been?" I go, "Oh, yeah, just had another son today." And he's like, how long ago? "Oh, a couple of hours." So it was interesting with Ben for the next, we actually went over to all our families on the eastern seaboard in South Australia and Victoria. We drove across early in the season, with the baby to show the family and that sort of thing. And Ben actually saw me the day before his debut. They did a Saturday training session, and he saw me. He goes, "You're that bloke from Perth. Is the baby here?" So they're telling him to go under the tunnel at Waverley Park.
Yeah,
he's like, "No. This is my friend from Perth. He's actually come up. I don't know, 80 metres out of his way or whatever, and can I have a photo holding the baby?" So he's done that, and then probably for the next 3 or 4 seasons when they had open trainings, he was always getting a photo with my son. And last year at Optus Stadium was quite funny. We actually reenacted that, and I don't think he'd be able to lift him now, being strapping sort of rugby player that he is now.
That's tremendous. So Kokoda, you want to go Kokoda?
Oh, I don't think I'm built for Kokoda. I'm not quite as bad as my wife that her view of camping is a 4-star hotel, but it would be a challenge. Maybe if I get closer back to my original playing weight, which is a long time ago now.
I think we're all going to struggle to get back there.
it might be something, but there's so much of the world, and to see. Talking of travelling the world, it was quite interesting. I was over in the United States last year, and I went to LeBron James's home opener for the LA Lakers, and I bumped into Tom Mitchell. At that point, obviously being the reigning Brownlow medalist, and this is a couple of hours before the game. I'd just been to a LA Kings game, and gone to the Grammy Museum. Came back out and bumped into him outside Staples Centre, and then had a quick chat and photo and whatnot. And
is that the first time you ever met him?
With a more in-depth conversation, correct? Yeah. So sort of g'day and that sort of thing.
But those things those interest me a lot when you see the players. There's a lot of players go over to the States on their holidays, and a lot of them go to the basketball or ice hockey and football, things like that, and you have to think that they'd be pretty down to earth if you approach them there. Was that what Tom was like?
Yeah, very much so. He was probably 20 metres away from me. "Oh, hey, Tom, how you going?" He said, "Oh, it's good to hear another Aussie accent. Oh, what are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, waiting to go the game and talking to him. At that point in time, I'd only just picked up one of his, I think it was one of the finals, Guernsey. So I was telling him about that from the semi, from his Brownlow winning year. So having a chat to him about that, and then it was probably another hour or so later. Finally, after having a bite to eat, going into the stadium, and he's only sitting half a dozen seats or something away from me in a venue that probably holds 20,000 Staples Centre.
Big stadium,
it was quite funny. We were sitting there, and we could actually a whole bunch of the Hawthorn guys on their footy trip had a corporate box at the game.
Yeah, right.
So could actually see them enjoying themselves up in the box. So
was Tom sitting off by himself?
Oh, he was hosting a tour group.
Oh, yes.
Hype Tours, I think it was. So I'd actually gone over with the Perth Wildcats, and my wife gave me a bit of an extra leave pass, so I ticked off as many sporting and music activities and that type of things I could. So it was fantastic. Even though the Lakers lost, over the years I've probably been to half a dozen Clippers games. I'd never been to a Lakers game.
Yeah, right.
So just seeing the difference in how they prepare and their pre-match entertainment and whatnot was fabulous.
Yeah, they have that giant sheet come down in the middle of the court. That was super cool.
Yeah, all the projections of some of their past greats. And
amazing what they can do with those sometimes. It looks wicked. Did you actually see any other football players while you were there?
Not AFL football players. Went to a bunch of NFL games and basketball games and hockey games.
Yep.
LA Kings, if you're ever at Staples, do a fabulous light show with all the LED lights with Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
I don't know if Wildcats have pinched that off LA Kings, or LA Kings have seen the success of the Wildcats. I don't know, but that was magic. They're great arenas, great atmospheres.
They are. They obviously have a lot more money to play with than what we do, so they put on a hell of a show with that, though. I went to the Golden Knights game last year in Vegas, and my God, it was like a cabaret show to start with. It was just absolutely mental. I'm not even going to explain it because you need to see it yourself. But
indeed,
full-on show on the ice where they take the sword out of the stone, and
right.
it's full-on. But definitely get out and have a look at some of those sports over there if you do head over there, because it's tremendous what they do entertainment-wise.
It certainly puts the Swanettes to shame of the Dr. Edelson era in Sydney, that's for sure.
So I didn't mention my favourite Hawks design, and it's only probably because it's pretty recent, but I think that Legends jumper from this year, absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, no, it was very very good. Guernsey, my understanding is that this year was honouring John Kennedy, the great inaugural 1961 premiership coach. I believe next season's is going to be honouring Graham Kennedy, not Graham Kennedy, Graham Arthur, the 1961 premiership captain, and the idea is to have a Legends Guernsey honouring some of the greats of the club's history over the next number of years. So I think it's a great initiative.
Do you know if it's going to be the same design, or are they going to change it up?
Well, traditionally Hawthorn have worn the same design for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest this year's will be the same, but with Graham Arthur's signature rather than John Kennedy's.
Yeah.
I don't know, but just on past experience, every couple of years they tend to change the design of the away strip.
Yeah, nice. It's kind of like what the Bombers did, but they had pretty much the same heritage design for a few years there, where they just sent same thing, just different signature on it and dedicated to a different player. So they actually changed a little bit with Ken Fraser one last year, that the mineral wash look, which was really cool. Now you guys are with Adidas, right?
Correct. Yes.
I didn't think there for a second.
2012 we're with Puma, and 2013 the beginning of the three-peat moved over to Adidas.
Yeah, well, that was a good decision, wasn't it? I don't know how I feel having a Hawks bloke in here, actually. The only team to beat us in our only chance to win a grand final. And then again, when we should have been in the grand final in 2015, it knocked us off there as well. But luckily you're a good bloke. But anyway, being on to Adidas, I noticed that a couple of years ago now, it was probably 2016. I think it was 2016. The Hawks actually put up what they called, I think, player authentic Guernseys on their website.
Okay.
And they were basically player issue jumpers.
Okay.
They were all sublimated numbers,
yes.
the same cut. But you could get them in any size, and I think they were $110 each.
Okay.
So they're retail prices.
Yes.
But you could get a number of different players. Did you pick yourself up any of those, or
No.
did you even know about it?
I may have at the time. It was one of those, lived quite a busy life between work and family and the like. So it's not immediately spring to mind, but effectively, my intention with my collection is that they've been used in a game with a COA. So I'm not a big fan of replica Guernseys. One of the things that really irks me is seeing some of these grand final, Guernseys that have got a something ironed on or whatnot being passed off as being match worn and all those things. Oh, the dog ate the COA. Suckers born out every minute, but it's just disappointing that people would try to pass that on. So.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I saw them, I wasn't too sure about it either. And I have, so the Brad Hill here is actually a player issue. I actually got it off Brad, so
yes.
I knew it was legit when I got it. But then I bought one off the website as well, and it was actually identical. So I had Joe Roughheads of the same jumper, and it was identical. So it was interesting that you could buy these jumpers. And I did only last year. It was only that season, I believe. So I don't know if there were complaints from, possibly from the AFL, SE products, things like that could have been killing the auction value. Or even just collectors like yourself who weren't too happy about it because it's bringing down the value or whatever. But it was interesting to see it. But I don't know.
Yeah, pre the more successful era. The Guernseys match-worn Guernseys used to go, being dirty jerseys, be quite accessible price-wise, and then sometimes there would be just player issues that end of season. If you went to visit Waverley or whatever, you might pick one up for $50, $80, $100. So, I guess it's not something that is new, but if they were actively marketing it as a replica player issue or whatever, bit more on the fence with it.
It was interesting when I saw it, but I think the description they actually had, which is why I thought it was the description they used for the auctions. It was identical, so that's what made me think about it. It was interesting. But anyway, we'll get off that. You mentioned that you could go into Waverley. Now,
yes.
Would you be able to go into Waverley and just pick up a player issue or match-worn jumper from the club at any point?
A number of years ago, yes. They've certainly become much more difficult to get a hold of.
Yeah.
I used to have some really good relationships with some of the past merchandise managers and whatnot that used to be involved. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess era of success has become a bit more commercial and professional, so it's much more difficult now to acquire proper match-worn Guernseys unless you go through the auctions or Peter Crimmon's medal at the end of the year. They'll often hold a set back and auction a number of them, but it's certainly much more difficult to acquire them these days unless you've got a relationship with a player or something like that. But then you haven't got the official bit of paper, which depending on some collectors view that bit of paper as being the be all and end all for value.
Yep.
And the like. So
you mentioned that you would prefer it with COAs.
Yes.
Is that the case? So if you were looking at a jumper and you weren't sure about the seller, you're not too sure, and they were saying it's definitely match worn, but didn't have COA, but it was still a good price.
Yes.
Would you still pass on it?
Well, if it was a hole in my collection, then I'd probably pick it up with a view of potentially replacing it at a later date. But as I said, most of my collection, I've got all the heritage jumpers, I've got all the the different aways and clashes and things like that as part of the collection. So it's not something that I as proactively sort of look for these days. So.
I say that because if I put up something that doesn't have a COA, which unfortunately there are clubs out there that don't issue them a lot because it's cheaper for them to do it.
There's a cost to get the AFLPA and AFL and SE, I think it is.
SE products,
actually do them with the holograms and
so it does get quite costly. So a lot of clubs don't do it anymore. But if I put up a jumper without a COA and I say there's no COA, it's just amazing how often people will say, "Oh, it must be fake." And if you're a collector, you know what you're looking for half the time anyway. Even if it's just player issue.
Yes,
most of the player issues generally don't come with one because it doesn't need to because you know what you're looking for. Unless, of course, I mentioned those player issue authentics that the Hawks had for a year. But it's just crazy that people will say, nah, it's fake. because it doesn't have a piece of paper. I could just go and make one up on my computer if you like. But okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there has been, I know some of my early Guernseys have actually got letters signed by, most of my old ones signed by the merchandise department. Some of the older ones that, particularly when Hawthorn were having their issues in the mid-90s, were signed by the Operation Payback, I think it was. I've forgotten now that so long ago, and I actually even got some COAs for boots from players from raising money for footy trips in Sam Mitchell's debut year and things like that. So 99, 2000, no, a little bit later than that. But I've got a eclectic bunch of COAs, but most of them tend to come in a couple of styles. In fact, there was actually, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago now, there was a bit of a controversy that a member of the club was actually faking COAs and, selling some stuff that, that person's, no longer at the club and things like that. So if there's ever a COA signed by, this certain person, there's always a lot of question marks about the legitimacy of whether it actually is what it says on the COA. So, that threw some doubt into the Hawthorn collecting community for some period of time. Yeah.
There's a bit of a well-known name, wasn't it? The bloke that did it.
It was, unfortunately, yeah. So, I haven't followed it closely, but I do remember reading something about he'd mixed up some listings or something and it all became commingled or, you can only take what people say at face value, but, it leaves you a little bit doubtful that the actuality of what the outcome was.
For sure. Now, with auctions as well, I've talked about it a little bit lately, leaving them unwashed.
Yes.
So Hawks have done that a little bit, and especially with the one-off games, correct?
They're basically all unwashed.
Okay.
The only exception I can remember was a auction of an away strip, maybe in 2015 actually, with having to go through West Coast and then Fremantle, the uncertainty over what they had to wear. So I think they wore the same strip and it actually came unwashed. Because they'd prepared it in case that's what they had to do.
Makes sense.
But my preference is always for match worn, something that I'm able to photo match if possible, which is a lot easier to do now versus Guernseys from the early 1990s and things like that, where there might be 5 or 6 photos from a game, and when you zoom in, they become a lot more pixelated and the like. So it's only if there's something unique like a tear or that you can still sort of work it out.
Yeah, for sure. There's a question I was going to ask there that's completely slipped my mind. Actually, no, sorry. You say that all your jumpers were unwashed, which is fantastic. Yes. Now, I just don't get it. It's running through my head that people that I've spoken to from clubs will say that they can't do it because of OH&S. Mm-hmm. But then there's clubs like Hawthorn who say, willy-nilly, who cares? Like, people can do what they like with it once they get it. If it's washed, then it ruins it. I don't know. It ruins the feelings to some people that, with this unwashed game-worn used jersey that they love. But it's just not quite the same because it's not like it was from the field. But I think the Hawks have got it right. Unwashed jerseys are the way to go. I just really hope that every club can come on board and do it because...
Yeah, and as I said, Hawthorn, I guess, were one of the innovators by, selling what they called dirty Guernseys on their shop, in the early to mid 2000s. Yep. So they were one of the first that actually did it. Another collector I know really well. He's got a bigger collection than mine. He started a little bit before I did as well, and he constantly from discussions would be chasing them up, seeing what was available, and all that sort of thing. And as I said, before Hawthorn had that success, they were a lot cheaper and more accessible. So it's unbelievable sometimes seeing the reserve prices versus what I paid, call it 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. How is it being a Hawthorn supporter in the West?
Well, there's actually quite a significant Hawthorn contingent
Yes,
over here. I mean, if you think back to the 1980s and the like, Buckenara and Judge and even Ben Allen and things like that, lots of West Australian champions ended up at Hawthorn.
Yeah.
And even I think it was David Parkin actually came and coached Subiaco and things like that when he finished at Hawthorn. So there was always not growing up here. I only sort of know it secondhand, but a lot of people tell me that before the Eagles came in, they were Hawthorn. But I mean, like I was born in 76, so got to 1990, and I didn't know what was going on when Hawthorn wasn't playing on grand final day, because every year that I could remember there, would be watching Hawthorn on grand final day. So,
that's right.
Success breeds success, and if you're new to a sport or whatnot, that tends to, I guess, influence some people to jump on board. But as I said, my connection goes back to the unsuccessful times with family members and the like.
I take it you managed to get to every game that's over here as well?
I do, yes. I don't think I haven't missed a game here in WA. I went to the 2012, 13 and 14 grand finals.
Yep.
2015, I wasn't certain whether Hawthorn would make 4 in a row. My wife said, do you want to plan a trip away to go to the grand final and may or may not make it, or do we go to America for 6 weeks?
Oof.
So it was one of those ones that bird in hand's worth two in the bush, as they say. Decided to go into the US thing. The sad bit was the day before the grand final, I was actually in Sydney for work.
Yeah. And
it took me everything I knew not to change my flight home to Melbourne. If we hadn't been playing, West Coast, that probably would have been a much easier, conversation. But the sad part was I flew back from Sydney to Perth, landed in Perth to voicemail on my phone saying, Brett, got a ticket for you. Can you make it? So I got home, had a look, seen was playing against the Eagles. I could probably fly via London cheaper than what I could have catching a last minute flight across. So didn't attend the 2015 sadly, but I did have a lovely 6-week holiday, and in fact I acquired Luke Bruce 2015 grand final Guernsey. I think it was about 4:35 a.m. in the morning in New York City. My wife's going, what are you doing? Go back to sleep. Don't worry about it, it's all good. So
nice, very nice. But I'm sure you had a fantastic trip anyway, and that would have topped it off for sure. It would have been a great start to the trip. So what is your oldest player issue that you have in your collection?
Oldest player issue is a 1992 Jason Dunstall. Actually, it might be 93. Ozchild.
Yep.
Who were only a sponsor for a couple of seasons there in the early 90s. I do have, when they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the first premiership, 1961. The club did produce a number of replica, Guernseys that, for whatever reason, I don't know whether it was they weren't made in time for the dinner or what happened, but the Hawks Museum ended up auctioning, some of those off. And, I bought Graham Arthur, who was the premiership captain, got it with my first bid. So, so I've got a 1961 replica, signed by, Graham. But the first, actual, and it's actually worn is the Dunster one.
That's awesome. Yeah. We get an absolute champion of your club and the game. It's fantastic to have one of theirs in your collection, without a doubt.
Indeed.
They're absolutely lovely. What are some of the favourites of your collection?
Well, I know with the three-peat, I mentioned before having, the Luke Bruce, a mate of mine had Grant Birchall's 13 and 14, wanted to get the 15 to have the complete set, but Birch's 2015, I think ended up going for about $9,000 or something like that. So as far as I'm aware, outside the players, the only person to have a player's complete set, from that period. So, as a set, that's my favourite lot. I also picked up his, I can't remember what year it was now, we played a round where we had the surnames on the Guernsey. So
2014, round 5.
Oh, there you go, with the expert. He's Australian, Guernsey.
All Australian, yeah.
Played here, that
was an awesome game too.
It was, and got to know him a little bit, and he sort of said he'd changed his other, he changed the half time like they do with AFL.
Yeah.
End of the game, he swapped with a Irish player.
Yes.
So he hasn't got one of them.
Yeah.
Similarly, his 200th game, Guernsey, he forgot it was his milestone, so didn't change at half time. So I've got a 1 out game that was won the whole game there.
Has he ever asked for it?
Well, I said to him, and he goes, and when we caught up at round 23, he goes, I know they're all in the one place, so if I ever need access to them, I know who I've got to come to. So he's pretty good about it. I've actually got his streak boot as well when he kicked, was it 29 goals straight or whatever to equal Tony Lockett.
Yep.
I actually helped the players raise some money for their 2014 footy trip.
Yeah.
So, basically syndicated and, sold match worn boots and whatnot for them to raise a bit of money for them for their trip. So, there's a whole bunch of people in WA that have got different players' boots from the 14 season, which, once again was done prior to Hawthorn, winning the premiership. We'd put that in place. So, he's pretty good about it, and if you ever send him a message or whatnot, he comes back pretty frequently.
Nice.
Mate and I, one night got to drive Luke Hodge home when he was over here for a sportsman night and things like that. So, got to know a few of the players a little bit over the journey.
Speaking of Luke Hodge, he'll be here in a week or so.
Yeah, I think Forestdale or something like that.
The Millennium Bar in Fremantle.
Okay. I think there's one at the Forestdale or Forestfield Football Club.
Oh, okay.
As well.
So he's doing a sports night as well, a Champions night. Yeah,
really cool. Ultimate Promotions.
Yes.
Ron from Ultimate Promotions brings Hodgie over. So, he normally, during his playing days, bye weekends and things like that, he'd come over and do 3, 4, 5 events. But, fantastic, lots of lessons to learn from his, football journey for any of those that haven't had the pleasure of hearing him speak.
Yeah, so my nephew Josh, obviously somewhat irregular co-host.
Yes.
He's currently in Bali right now, but big Brisbane fan, so he's wanting to go and meet Hodgie.
Yes.
He's going to drag me along, of course, but
very good.
I haven't got anything Hodgie anymore. I did have a couple of his, but well. I'll go for the listen, because I can imagine he'll have some fantastic stories and he'll give great insight on the game of football, so that'll be really good. And if anyone's listening, and you can get to the Millennium Bar or to check out the Forestdale or Forestfield one, if you have a look at the Ultimate Sports Promotions, you can probably find out where he's going to be that night. So it'll be really interesting stuff to listen for sure. So you mentioned your 95 diamond jumper.
Yes.
Now, I like how you mentioned that's one of your favourites.
Yes.
Because if you just go Google right now and you look up
worst
ugliest jumpers or worst designs ever, it's always number one.
Yes.
But that's the thing with cult jumpers, isn't it? So it's more of a cult design where some people absolutely love it and a lot of people absolutely hate it. Now, one of my favourites was the Dockers 3D anchor design.
Yes.
Again, another cult design that everyone absolutely hated at the time. But when we do our poll here in the next week or so, guarantee it's going to get really high votes.
Yeah.
Same with the diamond jumper. I reckon if they ever asked to bring that back, you'd have some people absolutely outraged at the idea, and then a lot of people would be like, hell yeah, bring it back for one game. It'd be tremendous.
I think it's related to it was related to an unsuccessful time in the club's history as well. Won in one game, got bundled out of whatever the Ansett Cup or Wizard Homes Loans Club or whatever it's been called over the journey at that point in time. But, it's just one of those ones that, it's unique. It's something, part of the club history that, is quite difficult to, get a hold of. I know at least a dozen people that are, chasing one.
Yeah.
And, that's my sample set. I'm sure, with the 80-odd thousand Hawthorn, members, there's a lot more than that they've got the interest in collecting Guernseys that would love to have one in their collection.
Without a doubt. So, is yours match worn player issue?
Yes.
Whose is it?
Ray Jenke.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That's a name for you. So you mentioned you do like your auctions, but
I don't like the auctions.
Well,
I like the old days.
You do buy off the auctions, however. Yeah, I get you. Where have you found jumpers? Give us something that you may have found something a little bit out of the box, out of the ordinary.
Well, I guess back in the day, eBay, was good. You'd put in misspellings of Hawthorn or misspelling of Hawks, and you'd uncover a whole magnitude of things. Sometimes just putting in a player's name. Yeah, people wouldn't put in Hawthorn or Hawks.
Yep.
And they would come up. But I guess I haven't really been searching significantly. But feedback I hear is Facebook Marketplace these days is a lot more significant than what the old eBay was. Yeah, Gumtree sort of was good there for a while, but it's just one of those things. You get to know people. I had a guy reach out to me just prior to the round 23 game that obviously there's quite a number of people that know the extent of my Bruce collection.
Yep.
He reached out saying I've got these couple of Guernseys. Would you be interested in them? But the price he wanted for them were were a bit high for what I thought. But as I said, get random people messaging me. I don't make a big deal of having people know what I've got or haven't got really. So it was a little bit of arm twisting to I guess get me to sort of finally come on and have a bit of a chat about it. But look at your network sort of grow.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've got different mates who'll pick up certain stuff and they'll reach out and go, "You interested in any of this?" Sometimes I'm not actually chasing a Guernsey, but the price is too good to pass up on. So, but one thing I do hate, I've got a few doubles and whatnot that I have put on Facebook, and the people kicking the tyres on it, just frustrating. You put them on at a reasonable price, and people come back and go, "I'll give you half," and all that sort of stuff. So, or they'll send you a whole bunch of messages going, "Oh, give us your bank details." They never transfer the money, and that's one part of the hobby, I guess, that that is frustrating, and particularly when some of those are, I guess, more what's the word that I put? More famous is the wrong word, but people that you see that are picking up a whole bunch of stuff, frequently, but then don't follow through on what they've committed to.
Yes. I do have a few like that, and you're right. There are people who just waste your time. It just gets out of control, and I tend to be very cautious of people who I've never met before, heard of before, messaging me saying, "Oh, I want that." I don't think I've sold anything until I've actually got the money, because the amount of people that say, "Oh, can you hold it to me for a week?" and it's out of control. I actually have 3 people right now who have asked me to hold something for them, and I don't expect to hear from any of them again. One just paid a deposit, actually, so that one may eventually happen, but these aren't.
I'll give you a good example. I took a couple of my jumpers down for a while.
Yep.
And I relisted them.
Yes.
The bloke came back to me again. They go, "Haven't you got your old messenger history where I sent you 50 different photos from all angles and everything you wanted?" So, it's... but, I don't tend to buy for... it's only if I've got a double or something like that, or, I'm no pressure or rush or anything to offload anything. So, my price is my price. If you want to pay it, awesome. Happy to send it on, but, don't come at me with lowball, ridiculous.
You got the same thoughts as me. I'll put up a price, and that's pretty much it. I'm not going to budge too much from that, because prices I put up on some things, it's definitely worth it for me anyway. I don't offload it. There's no point if it's going to be much less than that, because most of the time I end up getting rid of what I pay for them or less anyway. So, I'm going to take too much of a hit. So, what is the single most you've ever spent on a jumper?
Well, history shows 2015 Luke Bruce Grand Final jumper was the most expensive.
Yep.
They basically 2013 to 2014 went up about $1,000.
Wow!
And then a little bit more than $1,000 was the jump between the 14 and the 15 one. So hope my wife's not listening, but around about the $6,000 mark for that 2015 grand final Guernsey, which, as I said, 5 a.m. or whatever time it was in New York. I thought I had it, basically at the same price as what I'd paid for 2014.
Yes.
But, somebody bid pretty hard in the last 5 minutes, and we went into overtime, as the AFL auctions did.
Yep.
But, end of the day, to have that complete set.
That's the thing when you've committed to a certain player,
yes,
or a design, a specific thing that you've committed to. You have to keep going, and it can cost you.
Yeah,
the retro jumper this year, Freo's retro jumper. Yes. I got Mundy's, and obviously I was committed to Mundy all the way through, and he's went the highest, much more than Fife, who ended up winning the Brownlow. So things like that will go against you sometimes, but you got to have them.
So selfishly, 2016 was a little bit of a relief. I love the club to win, but geez, I don't know what the 2016 Bruce would have gone for if they'd have been successful. And I was actually in Beijing in China for the 2016 final series. So
What is your fascination with Bruce? I get asked all the time about Mundy, and I do have a few stories about him, which I've told plenty of times, but what is it with Bruce that enamoured you?
Well, I can't remember what year it was. The first year Gold Coast came in, there were some cheap flights, and my brother-in-law lived on the Gold Coast at the time, so we decided to have a family holiday, take the kids to Dreamworld and SeaWorld. And,
we'll be doing that next year as well.
So we went to the game, and lots of people were, it was before they had the bye, and Hawthorn basically rested their team and played the Box Hill team. And I don't know whether it was Bruce's debut or one of his very early games, but he played exceptionally well. Mentioned before that a little bit of speculation on some of the players that you see come through and the like. So I always sort of kept an eye on him from that point in time, and it really came down to what Guernsey got in the 13 auction. With him being 22, he was part of the way through the auctions, and some of the earlier players and whatnot had gone higher than what I thought that they might have, and whatnot, and so his 13 grand final jumper was actually the first one I ever bought. And then as I said, got to know him to a degree. On a personal level over a number of years. There were some stats released. I think last week I saw on Facebook looking at the Triple M did a basically goal assists and goals over the last decade, 2010 to 2019. He's second for goal assists, and I think 7 or 8 for the number of goals scored in the league. So it's just not about kicking the goals. It's about, he's also a cousin of Trent Barrett, who used to play for St George Illawarra.
Okay.
I also like following the Melbourne Storm. It was just a combination of things. I like the way he went about it, in his early days, that defensive forward pressure, him and Cyril and whatnot. Poppy sort of came in later in the piece to do that, but it was more just the way he went about it and the like, and the fact that I got his 13 Guernsey and whatnot. But it's great guy as well. Something to be said about you can be the best player in the world, but if you're not a great bloke, then I'm not interested, to be honest. But,
fair call.
He's a good guy as well. So
no, fair enough. It's very good reasons. Can't argue with that at all. And he's absolutely dominated Freo every single time we've played him. So
looking forward to a round 2 to see it happen again.
I am not. How much would you say you spent on jumpers in the whole?
Oh, gee whiz. I don't know. I'd have to, not sure, but probably more than I ever intended.
I think all of us can say that. All right, so I've noticed you sent me a few pictures because, like I said, researching you wasn't the easiest thing in the world. Thankfully, you did send me a few pictures, so they did help me a little bit.
Yes.
You've not just got your jumpers, you've got boots, you've got frame stuff everywhere.
Yes.
Is it just one little area, one little room that you've got it in as well?
It's sort of extended. Not quite as extended as yours across the premise, but I've got my man cave, so to speak, the theatre room that has the bulk of my collection. But there's other parts that are, in other parts of the house, lots of frame stuff that you can only got so many walls, so lots of them put away. And I'm actually caretaking what would it be? It'd probably be a 2.5 metre by a metre and a bit painting of Hodge.
Yeah, right.
A mate of mine's, working up in Singapore. At the moment. So, I'm caretaking that for him. So that's in my in my home office. So yeah, like it's.
You're going to take that to the Champions Night and get him to sign it.
Well, interesting. I mentioned before that we drove him home.
Yeah.
I drove the mate to. I go to 4-wheel drive. He only had like a little sedan or something. So I've driven my mate out there so Hodgie could sign it on that night, and we ended up driving him home. So, so that's already been done.
It would have been funny though, seeing you rock up with that in your ass.
I've met Hodgie a few times over the journey. I grew up in country Victoria. I remember seeing Hodgie playing as a 16 or 17-year-old in a grand final and things like that in the country, and that would have been late 90s, 98 or something like that. Not long before I moved to Sydney, saw him dominating, and 2001 he got drafted. So
really, you should have seen him as a Fremantle player as well. He should have been drafted to Freo, but Freo were fantastic drafters back then.
You got Trent Crowe for a couple of years, and then you got
won as many premierships.
Luke McFarlane, who I was devastated to lose.
Yes, Luke did give us some great years. So happy with that. But we should have had some great players out of that super draft, and got Graham Pollack. So the best thing he ever did was walk in front of a tram. But moving on,
going a bit dark.
That's not true. I do like Grant Pollack, but unfortunately he was injured a lot. I might cut that. No, I won't. I'll leave it in because it's scary to think about. So your jumpers that are framed, are they on those acrylic frames that you can just turn around and willy-nilly whenever you like?
Yeah, so basically, what have we got? 8, 9 sort of acrylic drop-in frames down one side of the wall. Mm-hmm. The Guernseys that have been in there have rotated over the journey, but basically, some of the club greats and whatnot. Croft's always stayed in there. Shane Crawford, Hodgie's his first jumper I got from 2005 or 2006, I think it was. Actually, it might have been it was definitely one of my first couple of jumpers versus Geelong. That's always been in there. Sam Mitchell's 2008 prelim final, Guernsey's been in there. Then the Bruce, grand final ones, Australia name round, in that. So, I do have the flexibility to, drop them in and out, but most of them I've just got stored on hangers because I've got a few that are framed. Steve Gillam's 2008 grand final, Guernsey, that one's, framed. Jordan Lewis, Big Freeze 2, Guernsey I picked up from a mate a few months back. That came framed, so got that in the office with the Hodgie painting. So, but most of them are just stored on hangers on a rack. So,
As have I.
Actually,
so best way to display them, I reckon. You can pick them up and have a look at them whenever you like. So
you got them in date order and things like that. So
indeed,
I think you sent me a message about Guernsey a few months ago, and I went to my rack and sent you back a photo. That's of one that did come with a COH, so you could see any differences.
Yeah, I was asking about 98 or 99. It might have been 98. Jason Dunstall. Because there was one on eBay for a little bit there, and someone did actually purchase it and resell it because they must have figured out the same thing, that the numbers were too skinny.
Yes.
So it just didn't look quite right. So I did ask you the question because I thought you'd be the man to ask, and you did the right, and you told me that I was indeed correct. And you showed me the ones that were right because
Yes.
they did have photo numbers. So that was really cool seeing those as well.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. If you can, help someone out so they don't get burnt. I got burnt early in the collecting game with what was meant to be a training Guernsey from the 1980s. Mm-hmm. It arrived and I'm like, this looks like it's come from Thailand or somewhere. You know what I mean? So, you build up a bit of knowledge over a long period of time, and if you can help someone out, happy to do so.
Absolutely. Actually, there's one thing I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I think Hawks are probably the only club I've really noticed where ex-players actually have decent collections. I think Dipper has a pretty serious collection.
Oh, it's interesting you say that, because Dipper did a sportsman's night at my son's footy club probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I had a bit of a conversation with him and see whether I could ease one out of his collection to fill that pre-90 hole. And I don't know whether it was just because he didn't want to talk about it or whatnot, but he basically said he didn't have much left.
Interesting.
So,
I swear I've seen an article with Dipper just with jumpers all over the place in his house on the second story as well, I believe, unless it's somebody else. But
that could actually be my mate's place. Dipper did.
No, I know who you're talking about. I do know who you're talking about. Yeah, down south.
Yeah.
No, not him. No, it's definitely a player because it was in an article and he was showing whoever it was, a journalist, all of his jumpers. But could be wrong on who the player was. But he has a serious collection. I'm going to have to look that up now, and I'll put it in the close.
I think Whitecross had a few of his framed in different places of his house when he listed his house a year or two ago.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Don't know of any other players that have a decent sized collection at all?
No, not really.
It's sad. We really need to find these players, even the older players, and we've got to get them on for a chat.
Most of the older players for Hawthorn have done the right thing and actually loaned or given a lot of their Guernseys to the Hawks Museum.
Yep.
I don't know if you've ever been to Waverley since it's been redone. Peter Haby, who's the museum curator there, has done a fabulous job of limited space, but even like stairwells and whatnot. All this fabulous memorabilia that's come over from Glenferrie and when the new new training facility and whatnot's built in Dingley, they're going to have a much more significant museum. What they call Glenferrie Gold, lifetime member of the museum. So, any time I get to Melbourne and the opportunity, Waverley's a little bit difficult to get to, and I guess one of the reasons why it didn't become that viable as an AFL venue back in the day. I love getting out there and trawling through some of the pieces, holding the cups, wearing Dipper's Brownlow, and had some special, unique experiences.
That was super cool. I actually have to do that. I did go on a little bit of a trip to Melbourne recently. Did get out to a few clubs, but Waverley was a little bit too far out for me for the time that I had. But I definitely would actually like to get out and have a look because it sounds like it'd be really cool.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of clubs out there who do some really great stuff to showing off their history. So speaking of history, actually, it just clicked in my head that there was a gentleman who used to live right behind us back in our old house. This would have been back in probably 98, 99, 2000-ish. He was an old bloke. He would have been probably in his late 80s, early 90s possibly. Unfortunately, I don't remember his last name, but his name was Peter. And he played for the Hawks in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
He also played for East Fremantle.
Okay.
And he said at the time he was going to give me one of his jumpers from when he played for the Hawks.
Oh, wow.
Now, I would have only been 13, 14 at this time. So unfortunately, I didn't chase that up. Yes. And he did pass away. And never happened, but I really do need to try and find out exactly his last name and look up on his story a little bit because I just wasn't as big a football fan or especially collector as I am now. So sad that I'll never obviously meet him again because it would have been tremendous to talk footy with him, but he was a really nice bloke and I'll have to look him up, but it would have been amazing to have a 1950s Hawks jumper in my collection. Yeah, it would have been really cool. Peter and Gwen. So his wife's name was Gwen. I remember that.
All right.
And it's not Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy either. That sounded like I made that up. Peter and Gwen. My parents might know a little bit more about him. So I'm going to try and find out a bit of that and see if I can find out a bit more about his history. See if we can put it on the page. But anyway, moving on. That would have been tremendous to have something that old.
definitely.
Okay, is there anything other than Hawthorn Hawks that you collect?
Oh, my wife says too much. I've got quite a bit of Melbourne Storm gear. I've basically got balls, team signed balls from the years that they won the premierships through until when they got those titles stripped away.
Yes.
So I was actually at the 2009 grand final when they unexpectedly won in their second season and things like that. There was probably at that point in time, Stadium Australia was still pre-configured for the Olympics, so I think it was 106,000 or something there, and I reckon they would have been lucky to have been 6,000 Storm supporters and close to 100,000 St George fans. So when the Storm started coming back, some St George people started throwing beers and whatnot. Luckily, 3 or 4 rows away from me were a whole bunch of at that point in time, when the Storm were founded, there was a lot of New Zealand representative players and players that came out of the Western Reds that folded and the Hunter Mariners and things like that. A whole bunch of these Kiwi guys, oi, he's with us. And even though I didn't know him from a bar of soap, but that was an interesting experience. So I've got a bit of Storm stuff. I actually got quite a bit of basketball stuff as well. Steph Curry, my favourite NBA player. I've actually got all his shoes, Curry 1 through 6.
I actually had a pair of Curry flip-flops, and they lasted about 2 days. Not because I got rid of them, but I left them out the front and someone nicked them.
Oh, right.
I didn't pay for them. The cousin gave me for nothing, so that was all right.
So I think
it's either love or hate Curry.
Yeah. Well, that 2015 trip I spoke about, my wife and I went and saw Golden State play New Orleans Pelicans.
Yep.
I had my Andrew Bogut singlet on, Golden State one.
Yep.
And it might have been the first couple of days of the season. Anyway, it was Halloween in New Orleans. They announced half an hour beforehand that Andrew Bogut was out with concussion.
Balls.
So I'm like, damn. But Steph Curry laid in 53 points.
So, all right.
Ever since that point, Curry became, the man for me. Yeah.
Fair enough.
In regards to NBA players.
Okay.
And I think I've got 22, 23 pairs of his different shoes that have been released.
He had that many.
The Sixers that I've got on at the moment that he wore All-Star weekend this year.
Certainly wouldn't miss you walking the door. Absolutely bright lime green.
Yeah, for those playing at home, the Curry 6 Koi Green that he wore during All-Star weekend. So
Koi Green.
Yeah, so something to do with when he was playing college basketball. They used to have team dinners and they went to a Japanese restaurant and someone jumped in the koi fish pond or something in the Japanese restaurant. I can't remember the exact, but all of the different shoes he's released over the years have got a different something to do with relationship in his career, or he issued a pair that were Charlotte Hornet colours.
Okay.
Basically, his dad Dell, famous for many clubs over the journey,
which a lot of people forget about.
Yeah, indeed. So I've got a lot of different things. I've been lucky enough to travel to the States quite a number of times. So normally when you go to an event, they give you like a rally towel, or we went to an LA Kings game 2015 and we got a Cartman from South Park bobblehead in a LA Kings jersey and things like that. So just lots of little bits and pieces. So but majority of my collection is Hawthorn related, but I do have bits and pieces from other different sports and the like.
Now, those who know me, I know that I am a big wrestling fan.
Yes.
And he walked in the door wearing it is an Under Armour shirt. However, it's got the nice Brahma bull on it from The Rock.
Yes.
Have any Rock stuff at all, or any WWE stuff?
I don't have WWE stuff. Met, what's his name? Loki.
Okay.
A few times when he's been in Perth and things like that.
Interesting.
So got some photos of my kids and different bits and pieces.
Yep.
But I've got travelling in the States, you can go to the outlets and whatnot. You pick up Under Armour shirts for quarter of the price of what they are
it's
here.
insanely expensive here.
Yeah, so got a few rock shirts and things like that. They're Under Armour, Ari's fitness sponsor. I guess he's got the rock range.
Yes, which you can buy from Rebel Sport here, I believe.
Yeah,
they are bloody expensive.
There's also a Under Armour store out at DFO near the airport.
Okay, yeah, right.
So you can get things a little bit cheaper out there, but still, compared to America, you're paying probably triple the price.
Yes,
even allowing for exchange rate differences.
Yes, unfortunately, I forgot when I got there to go and have a look for some Under Armour shops because I heard they were everywhere, but unfortunately I didn't even see one. But
yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's one of those things that I remember 2015 with the Vegas premium outlets, and had a quick look, and could have got things ridiculously cheap at that point, but it's just exploded in popularity the last 4 or 5 years. They've done a good job. To be a great case study of how to grow and market a brand. So.
Yeah, pick the biggest superstar in the world. That's pretty easy.
The interesting one about Steph Curry was Nike that he wore for his first couple of years. They went and did the presentation to him and left Kevin Durant's name on the presentation. So they're just rolling out the same presentation to everybody, but they hadn't edited it correctly. So Steph and his dad Dell decided to go with Under Armour at that point. They were very much a fledgling brand. I believe he got a bit of an equity stake in it, and potentially a chance to do what Jordan's done to a degree. Who knows?
Absolutely. Big game out there, the shoe game for NBA players. It's probably the biggest sponsorship you can get nowadays.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so what does your family and friends think about your collecting?
Depends on the day, I guess. No, I have a very understanding wife. She, my most favourite room in the house is her least favourite. My boys' sort of interests ebbs and flows, to a degree as time goes by. There's times where there's lots of questions about, what's this game from and whatnot, and other times like, you can have it when Dad's dead. So I don't know. It's it's not something that, as I said, not something that I make overly public. It's just one of those things that I enjoyed doing and did and had the means to do. So it's just, I don't know.
Do you do it for yourself? I think that's what the main factor is, isn't it?
Indeed, and that's the thing at the end of the day. There's a linkage to things that have happened in the past and whatnot that you almost feel like a bit of a custodian of a period of time of history. There's a significant number of Hawthorn collectors. I know of one other person in Western Australia that has got a better collection than mine, but I've heard some people joke that we're effectively the Western chapter of the Hawks Museum, between the two of us.
Yep.
So
I could see that. I do know who you're talking about, and I have seen quite a lot of photos from down there, and got an amazing setup. And how they get the players to come there, and it's not nowhere near the city, and just enjoy the museum they have, as you say, and sign some of the stuff is amazing. So they've done well. Really well.
Pleased to say he's good mate of mine that when I'm travelling down that way for work, we catch up and talk footy and admire.
Yes, that's what it is.
Bits of history, so it's good.
Exactly why we do it. All right, this one's the last question I have for you, and it's never the easiest question.
Okay.
Not too many people can answer it, to be honest. What's the one jumper that you don't have that you would like to have in your collection from any club?
Oh, there's no other club than Hawthorn. So that part's easy. 91 grand final Guernsey, I think, would be my sort of ultimate. Because up until that point there was nothing really distinguishing what they were from. There was not really any COAs or whatnot. With the passage of time, players' memories and whatnot get a bit foggy of what it's from or where they got it. Like if it's someone like a player from '61 that had swapped the Guernsey with a Footscray player and the Footscray player is offering it up, then there's a fair, confidence that it's a 1961 grand final match won Guernsey, but 91 with the so on patch and that type of thing would be a nice one to have. Even some of the older sponsor ones, they used to unpick the sponsor and so on the next one. So, talking, the person we were referring to a few moments ago, seen some of his jumpers that we can basically see evidence that they were worn 4 or 5 seasons, with, marks of sewing and unsewing and whatnot and repairs. Unlike today where, if you want to change your jumper every quarter, you can effectively can.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I think you used to get two short sleeve Guernseys and a long sleeve Guernsey, and that was it for the year. Yep. And if it was still in good nick, the property steward would just put it back in the kit for the next year to be worn. So, like some of those older Guernseys would be fabulous to have, but they're getting very, very rare.
Yep.
And for the sake of everybody, I'm quite happy for them to be in the museum, for Hawks Museum in Waverley, soon to be in Dingley, for everyone to be able to enjoy.
Yeah, awesome. And a good fun fact about that 91 grand final was actually played at Waverley.
It was.
So, yes. Very interesting that happened, but good
old
piece of history.
Good old Angry Anderson bound for glory in the Batmobile. Infamous grand final.
Yeah, indeed. And that was also West Coast's first grand final.
Correct.
As well. So, so any particular player out of that game that you would like to have?
Oh, gee whiz. It's, Paul Deere won the Brownlow, so... not the Brownlow, sorry, the Norm Smith medal. So that'd be a fabulous one to have, for that connection. But, there's so many great players Hawthorn had through the late 80s, early 90s that, any of the players that played that day would be a welcome addition.
I reckon Michael Tux would be a big one to get from that game.
That would be, ended up being his last game.
It was.
So
he's wearing his long sleeve as usual. And
indeed, it was quite a warm day, and he shaved off his beard at that point and wanted to keep going. But there's a number of players that ended up being sort of the end of that that golden era of the 80s. That I remember the shirts at the time. Too old, too slow. Too bloody good. So, yeah.
Yes. Oh, well, you can't beat them, unfortunately. The Mighty Hawks have been one hell of a club, and it's good to have a collector in from that specific club. So thank you very much, Brett, for coming in.
Pleasure.
Hope you enjoyed yourself, and everyone that comes on the show always seems to have a page up very soon afterwards. So we'll look forward to seeing your collection on the page very soon.
Unlikely, mate.
All right, thanks a lot, Brett.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
So there we go. That is our chat with Brett. Hope you all enjoyed. I certainly did. It was great to finally get him on after all this time. I have a feeling that chat could have gone for a heck of a lot longer than it actually did. I actually turned the air conditioner on just before we started, because the studio does get rather warm. Unfortunately, when Emma came home, she turned it off. So about an hour and 15 in, I was sweating absolute bollocks. So we had to cut it there and then. However, we got through everything we wanted to get through. So thank God, because we would have been gone until Sunday evening, I reckon. So anyway, it was a great chat, and I thoroughly enjoyed Brett coming in. And he's going to try and help me out with trying to find out who the bloke was who used to live behind me. 99% sure he said he played for Hawthorn. However, looking at the records that Brett has found, we can't seem to link up any sort of player by the name of Peter that has played for Hawthorn and East Fremantle. I have a feeling he may have been on the Hawthorn squad and may have played in the Hawthorn VFL team if there was such a thing back in the day. But it's going to take a little bit of research, I would say. My parents, unfortunately, do not remember their last name either. So it's going to take a bit of research, but just be interesting to hear a little bit more about his story. So I really wish I was a little bit older when I met him. It would have been great to hear some of the stories that come out of his mouth, that's for sure. And Brett, please let us know on the page as soon as you remember or find out what your very first jumper was, because I know that's going to play on my mind till the end of time, and I'm sure some of the listeners will be interested to know as well. So let us know when you find that out, mate. Cheers. Thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Just before we move into the usual, what's come in and what I've seen on eBay, etc., etc., some of you who have been on the page or on some of the other Facebook pages may have noticed a bit of a lotto going on. The lotto was for a couple of jumpers that John Rambo actually organised. John actually, no, I don't believe that's his real name. However, it's a pretty good alias to have, John. Well done, mate. He messaged me about a week ago now and just asked a few questions about the podcast and any sort of costing and things like that. And I did let him know that it does cost a little bit to run the podcast, as obviously I do have to pay for the equipment and things like that, but that's not an issue. Obviously, I wanted to do it for all you guys out there, so I wasn't too fussed about that. And I do have to pay what's called a host, which is an online storage where I'm able to host the show where you can all download it from. They basically distribute it to Apple Podcasts and all the podcast formats and platforms. So I do have to pay a monthly fee to them. But again, I'm more than happy to do so. But John organised for a raffle and just general donations for the actual show. So, unbelievably, the amount of people that donated was absolutely incredible in such a short amount of time. And from what I last heard, I saw the raffle sold 80 tickets. And I actually drew the raffle myself. Thought it was appropriate that I do so. Just to thank everyone on the live video on Facebook. And yeah, I was just absolutely blown away by everyone's generosity and donations. So the money will definitely go to a very worthy cause, and I will show you all on the page how the money gets spent. And yeah, just again, to everybody who had a donation or just support in general for the show, you don't have to give money. Like, I have absolutely no reason or want for you to give me money. I do the show for you. Because I have such a passion for it, and I know you guys have a passion for it as well because you listen. And I know that quite a few of you out there do listen because we're now up to over 1,000 listeners. So it's absolutely incredible. Not something I would have thought would have happened when we first started. So again, the love and the passion and the support that you guys give me just drives me to continue to do the show for you. So thank you very, very much again, Rambo, you legend. Tommy Watson for organising the page, the lotto page, and of course contributing as well. And Jordan Brewster for putting on the actual auction. And Georgie Stegel, who has absolutely no ties to myself or the podcast or the page. She just donated one of her Brisbane Lion jumpers to the lotto. And again, everyone jumped on it and donated away and bought lots of tickets and sold heaps of tickets. So just absolutely massive for somebody to chuck a jumper up there that really she had no interest in the podcast, possibly. She may have listened to it, but as far as I'm aware, she's probably not even listened to it. So it's absolutely massive, and I really appreciate it, and it's definitely going to go to a worthy cause. So from the bottom of my heart and from everybody who listens to the show, thank you everyone that donated. Really appreciate it, and it's definitely going to drive me to continue to bring great guests and great shows to you, and hopefully I can do so without losing too many people because I dribble on way too much. So let's move on. But thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. So moving on to what's come in my collection this week. If you guys don't want to hear what has come into my collection, let me know because I don't even know if you like hearing what I get in, but I'm just going to dribble on and tell you about it anyway because some people might be interested. But good thing is this week I only got one in, so it's going to be nice and sweet and short. But it was a big one, and for me to say that is pretty rare, but this is absolute quality. Oh, actually, I lie. Sorry, I actually got 3 in, but I guess I got so excited about the one that I forgot about the other 2, but they're nothing in comparison to this one. Basically, I've been saying for a little while now that I am looking to buy the house that I'm currently renting. Emma and I are looking to buy, so we're not trying to spend too much money at this stage. So I've seen a few jumpers pop up, and even little ones that I would have jumped over easily every time previously. I've just had to calm down a little bit and not spend too much money. However, when that one jumper pops up that you haven't got in your collection that you absolutely must have, you almost don't even look at the price tag and you just buy it. Well, it's kind of exactly what I did. I saw this jumper pop up and I immediately clicked buy now. Thankfully, the price was actually very fair. I picked it up for $395, which if I was to turn around and sell it right now, I'd probably ask around $1,000, and that would be pretty fair. However, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be selling this probably ever, so apologies to anyone who may be excited about it, but it ain't going anywhere out of my collection. It is a 1995 match-worn Craig Callaghan Fremantle Dockers away jumper. So they're original green with the 2 purple panels, which was the very first jumper that Fremantle actually wore. So they wore that jumper when they played against Richmond in their very first game. So absolutely incredible jumper. I have seen long sleeves versions of it in player issue, but I have never seen a match worn, and I've never seen a sleeveless ever. So that is absolutely incredible to find, and I'm absolutely stoked to add it to my collection. And it probably excites me even more for the vote that we have coming up for voting on Fremantle's next heritage or retro jumper for next year. So maybe my vote might change, but don't know. But anyway, absolutely incredible find. Absolutely stoked to have it. And yeah, unbelievable. Couldn't believe I got it. And the bloke express posted it to me. So I was that excited. I was like, please, can you get it to me as quick as possible? And he did. So thank you very much. He express posted it for no extra. So that was awesome. Amazing jumper. I absolutely love it. The other 2 I did pick up were 2 2013 Fremantle Dockers home jumpers. One was a Lockie Neal and the other one was a Hayden Crozier. Absolutely nowhere near the quality of the 95. However, still very nice jumpers. So that was my 3 ins for this week. I have absolutely nothing on the way. So by the next episode, I may have 0 come in, which will be the first time in a long time. Let us know if you got any big pickups this week. We'd be very excited to hear. Now, things are certainly starting to slow down on the eBay auctions, Gumtree, and of course the AFL auction sites. Collingwood's auctions did end, and they did go for a heck of a lot more than they did in a couple of years previous. I remember picking up Scott Pendlebury's Clash jumper for $200. I picked up Chris Mayne, a couple of his for, I don't know now, $120, $130, something like that. And obviously the prices were a lot cheaper back then, and then of course I made the grand final and prices skyrocket, and the jumpers went for a heck of a lot more this time. I was not interested in paying any of the prices. I would have had to pick up somebody that I probably didn't even know. So if any guys, I know you did pick up some Collingwood jumpers from the auctions, let us know. Chuck it on the page. We'd love to see what you got. I know a couple of the guests, Paul Mirror, did pick up quite a few, big haul, and spent way too much money. So jump over to his page and have a look at what he picked up. Yeah, well done, guys, on your pickups from the Collingwood auctions. Too much for me, I'm afraid, but well done, Collingwood. You guys have done well to keep your auctions going, and I really enjoy seeing the end of season. You chuck up all your jumpers on the auction, so that's really great to see. Now, some of the eBay sales that we've seen, or that I've seen this week, there was a 2017 Patrick Dangerfield home jumper player issue floating around for a little while. It eventually did sell for $400. It took a while, but he eventually got there. There's been a number of number 25 Brisbane Lion jumpers floating around. Pretty clearly that they use the number 25 as a prototype, because there's just way too many of them not to be a prototype. The Fitzroy Melbourne version, so the Way Clash, I don't know what they actually call it, but it's the Melbourne version of it. Sold for $89. So that was a player issue number 25. Now, there was another jumper that I was upset that I missed. I was really hoping to get it. I actually played cricket with the guy who wore this jumper. And it was a 2009 Braddell Zeal. Also Brisbane Lions, the Clash jumper as well. So the Fitzroy style or colour jumper. Really devastated to miss out on that one. He'd signed the front of it. And as I mentioned, I'd played cricket with him. And I do have his home jumper of that, so I was really hoping to pick that up. But unfortunately, I missed out, and it went for $71, so a really good price. I need to make sure I'm on my game with the auctions, unfortunately, because I had a bit of a nap at that point, obviously. I missed it. But congratulations whoever did get it, and if you do want to sell in future, let me know, because I'd be very interested. Another one of the 2018 West Coast Eagles jumpers was up. It got just the one bid. I think it's a Luke Partington jumper. And that one sold for $119.95. Yet another one of the 25 Fremantle. Yet another one of the 25 player issue Brisbane Lions jumpers. This one's a home one. And this one sold for $68. So I think people start realizing at that point that there's a lot of them coming out. So they're definitely the production jumpers. And yeah, they went a little bit cheaper. And today, a player issue warm-up top, Dane Swan, Collingwood player issue warm-up top. Really nice looking player issue. Really nice looking warm-up top, rather. Sold for $162.50. So people still love the Dane, and why wouldn't you? It was a Brownlow medalist, an absolute gun. So congratulations whoever won that. Also sold today, not too long ago, was a James Hird. Looks like a 2006 or 2007, probably a 2007 from looking at this now. Home jumper, signed by James Hird on the back. And that one sold for $192.50. So for an absolute legend of the game, champion of the game, pretty good price, I think. Very good price. Now, I just mentioned that I haven't got anything coming in. That was actually a lie, and it's something I completely forgot about, and I only won it about 3 hours ago, so I don't know how I forgot about it. But a lot of people actually tagged me in this jumper, and I really appreciate that, because, as I said, sometimes I may miss it and get a bit lazy, but I certainly won't miss it with all you guys tagging me in these jumpers, so thank you heaps for that. I appreciate it. It was a Fremantle Dockers 1995 home jumper. Now, at first glance, it looks to be player issue, or match worn possibly, but who knows back in those days. But it looks to be player issue. Numbers seem correct. There is no collar, which there was a collar on the retails. However, there is no Yakka sponsor painted on the back. Now, when I pick up the jumper, I'll be very interested to see if there was any signs of the Yakka on the back at all. And if not, then that would be really intriguing as to what the jumper actually is. I'll have a look and see if there's any unpicked stitches around the collar as well, see if the collar was actually taken off. But at first glance, it looks like a player issue jumper. As to why it doesn't have the Yakka on the back, at this stage I'm unsure and very interested to see what it actually is. It's number 19. So absolutely stoked to add it to the collection, and I really hope it is actually a player issue, because it would be a fantastic pickup at $116. So very happy to pay that amount for that jumper. Even if it's not player issue, it's still quality at $116 for an inaugural season jumper. So yeah, really, really cool. At the moment, there is a Lance Franklin away jumper, so the White Clash. Apologies for not knowing exactly what season it is right this second. It looks like a 2012-ish. Again, apologies. No GPS pocket. So it could even be earlier than that, actually, but don't hold me to that. Player issue, signed by him on the back. At the moment, it's sitting at $80. And it's got 8 days remaining, so it may go fairly high, but good looking jumper. It's a little bit interesting not having the GPS pocket on the back, but could be a little bit earlier than I think, and it could be that they just didn't have it at that point, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I reckon it should have the GPS pocket. There's also the same bloke selling a Robert Murphy player issue Western Bulldogs jumper. It looks to be a 2012-ish as well, about the same era. There's a Cougar jumper, and it's the away clash, the white jumper. It's currently going for $95, and that also has 8 days remaining, so you can imagine it'll go for a decent amount of cash, signed by Bob on the front, so gorgeous looking jumper. The number 18 Claws pre-season jumper, Tigers, claimed to be match worn, but more than likely just player issue, unless he did play in the pre-season, but he didn't play a game through the year. Still popping around for $500 if you're interested. Good looking jumper, but if you're interested, $500 for an unworn jumper, I would imagine. Jump on it. It's a good looking design. The same bloke also has the 2004 Heritage jumper, the Joel Bowden. Sitting at $1,000 now, so he has dropped it a couple hundred. So if you're interested in that, jump on that. Gumtree actually produced a couple of beauties this week. One I just missed out on. I was a little bit devastated, but congratulations to whoever got it. A 2006 Chris Judd player issue jumper. He sold it for $450, which I told him he was foolish and he could have got probably double that at least. But he didn't believe me at all. But well, congratulations to whoever won that. At $450, I think you got yourself an absolute bargain. There was also a 2019 Melbourne Indigenous jumper. It didn't have the back sponsor, so that was interesting. I wasn't sure they actually made them without back sponsor. I know that they did actually wear one with the back sponsor, so yeah, interesting. So that was only $60, so it was player issue. Obviously not being having the back sponsor, they would never have worn it. So it must have been a production jumper as well, pre-production jumper as well. But yeah, very interesting to see that. I haven't actually seen one for a little while that didn't have the back sponsor on it. Obviously, Melbourne did have a season where they didn't have a back sponsor, so not all that surprising, I guess. But yeah, was interesting to see. And that, my friends, is that. That is all we have for you this week. Episode number 12 is in the books. Been going along for about an hour and 40 minutes now, so I'm going to switch this off because I'm sure you've had enough of me, that's for damn sure. I'm going to get on to a few more blokes and try and get an episode lined up for the next couple of weeks. I have sent a couple of emails off, which I'm hoping to get some approval back very soon. And if that happens, we're going to have a fantastic chat with another very incredible insightful gentleman that I'm really excited to have on the show. And he's another collector and he's a fan of the show as well. So he's definitely going to be someone that we're going to want to have a chat to. And of course, we're still hoping to have a chat with Paddy Watson, the original Dockers property steward. So that's all still to come. I hope you're as excited as me. I hope your hunting and collecting goes very, very well the next couple of weeks. Hope you land your whale. Hope you get an absolute big one. And that is going to do it for us. Ta-ta for now and good night.